All right, guys, so at this point, we have a lot of MCU projects up in the pipeline, but really, at this point, all eyes are on two movies in particular, Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, because the multiverse saga, and not all of it has been necessarily just the fault of creatives per se. It's not been, oh, Marvel's hired terrible writers and terrible directors and they just haven't delivered. There's been a lot of other external factors, not to make excuses, right? Not to make excuses. We don't make excuses, for example, for the DCEU when all the stuff with Warner Brothers was going on during that turmoil. So not to make excuses, but, in terms of the inner politics within Disney, within the CEO switches, within the just different random things that happened that weren't foreseen, like Chadwick Boseman passing away. Phase 4 and Phase 5 and now Phase 6 they've just been messy, right? And so we're all just kind of waiting. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. Let's just kind of get a reset going, and hopefully after Avengers Secret Wars, there's going to be some kind of reset heading into the next phase where Marvel can return to form. And it looks like we're maybe heading in that direction, hopefully. You're hoping Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four and Ironheart seems like a vestige of the original regime, so I'm not really going to put my hopes on Ironheart, but Wonder Man and Vision and Spider-Man 4, it looks like we're heading in a good direction, but we'll have to see about that. So interestingly, the Russos, who have been promoting their new film, The Electric State, which I hear is terrible. I haven't seen it myself, so I don't know, but I hear it's terrible. They have been talking about these two films. They've been talking about what these two films are going to be, and they actually gave a quote that I find fascinating, and I think actually is a very healthy and very good way to look at what these two films are going to be. So I'm reading a couple quotes, or I'm just going to read one quote here from the direct, but they gave some other quotes just saying how exhausting it is to make these two films, that, Anthony Russo got pneumonia after filming Infinity War, and they took a 4-week break before doing Endgame, which is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. So kudos to them. These two films, I think they said they have something like a bunch of trading cards where they're just trying to pin down every single character and where they are in the story. It's crazy. I fully respect them for doing this. I mean, only 2 sets of directors, Joss Whedon and now the Russo brothers, have ever directed Avengers films, and it is no small task. So, and the fact that all of them work to some degree, and Age of Ultron probably being the weakest one is still an enjoyable movie, is crazy. It's really crazy. So, really respect them for that. But this quote here that I wanted to talk about, I think shed some light on how they're viewing these two movies, and I think how we should view these two movies, not comparing them to Infinity War and Endgame. So this is what I think Joe Russo had to say. Quote, "What's compelling about these two new Avengers movies is they're a beginning. It's a new beginning. So we told an ending story, now we're going to tell a beginning story, and then who knows where we all go from there. Maybe there'll be another 5 years, but I think we just needed that time and perspective to figure out where it needed to go next, and the only thing that brought us back was the right story." Okay, so for a long time, a lot of us have been looking at these two films, Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, as another culmination of the multiverse saga, and it is that. It definitely is that, right? And I would argue, for example, the first Avengers, right, 2012's Avengers, is an ending. It's a culmination of bringing together all 6 of those, or all 5 of the previous films into the 6th film that was the Avengers. But in a way, the Avengers was a new beginning into a new era of the MCU where all these heroes were interconnected now, and you had all these different things going on, and that built up to something even grander and something bigger. I think we've all, myself included, been looking at Doomsday and Secret Wars as a pseudo-quasi-Infinity War Endgame, which was going to be a grand conclusion to the Infinity Saga, and it was going to bring everything together and tie it up into a nice little bow, and then move on, right? And it wasn't going to, it was just going to be a definitive ending. And I thought that, and I was worried about that, because I was like, well, if you're going to have a definitive ending or whatever you're going to do, there's not a whole lot to definitively end, because there are just so many things that are dangling up in the air. I mean, if you're not going to have Moon Knight, if you're not going to have She-Hulk or whatever, I think they will have She-Hulk probably, but, for example, Moon Knight or Blade or Werewolf by Night, like, where are all these characters? If Agatha doesn't show up, then what? And I think if you're thinking about it as an ending, it's a little concerning. But if you're thinking about this, like the Russos are, as a new beginning, I think it makes a lot more sense, actually. Now, Doomsday and Secret Wars are still going to tie up a lot of things that have been going on in the multiverse saga, and hopefully put to rest this whole multiverse-ness, so we can move on to mutants and cosmic and whatever is going to come next. Hopefully better quality, right, in general. But I think that in terms of looking at these two films as a jumping off point, and yes, this does put fuel to the fire of those rumors that, the multiverse is going to collapse and all the Earths are going to come together in some way, and it's going to, mutants and Fantastic Four, etc. I think that makes a lot of sense, right, in terms of a new beginning, and I think mutants are definitely a big part of that. So I think this is actually really encouraging, because now it's like we're unburdened to say, well, why isn't it tying up this thing and why isn't it tying up that? Guys, remember Endgame had literally almost every single character in the MCU ever in that final shot, right? Where before they jump into battle. I don't think Doomsday and Secret Wars is going to be like that, honestly. I think for sure they're going to have a lot of cameos, and Toby and Andrew and Hugh are probably going to show up, and it's going to be fun. But I think it's going to be different, and I think that this is actually a really encouraging way for them to look at it and position these two films. So guys, what do you think about the Russo's comments that Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars are not going to be an ending necessarily, but they're going to be a new beginning for the MCU? Let me know in the comments down below.